Officially, dyslexia is considered a disability. However, coming from education studies and as a dyslexic myself, I have multiple issues with that statement, and in this video I'm gonna tell you why. Let's look at research to figure out why it might be harmful to label dyslexics disabled. These are all the topics that I'm going to cover. Feel free to skip ahead. So without further ado, let's get into it. For the first argument, we're going to have a look at an article written by Jonathan Lazard, and he did some research on the self-esteem of dyslexics. So let's have a look at it. So in his study, he looked at the different factors that influence self-esteem, and he came to an interesting conclusion, namely that the most significant factor that contributes to student self-esteem was a positive diagnosis of dyslexia and ownership of the label. Since calling dyslexics disabled can hardly be called a positive form of diagnosis, I would argue that the label has a negative impact on the self-esteem of a dyslexic. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Your belief will turn into a certain behavior, and the behavior will then produce a result. And the belief that is behind the label disabled is that you can't change it. And that will then lead to passive behavior, and the result is that you won't learn certain things. And especially with younger dyslexics, there's a lot of development, as you see here, and that might be jeopardized. For the third argument, I want to give you yet another study. This paper was written by Neil Humphrey, and in it he writes, "One of the most exciting discoveries in education psychology in recent times has been the finding that people's levels of achievements are influenced by how they feel about themselves." I believe it's fair to say that calling somebody disabled will result in a whole array of negative feelings, and that will then influence the performance of a dyslexic negatively. Recently, we became more and more aware of the fact that disabling experiences are the result of the combination between the individual and his or her social environment. It's a person in a wheelchair encountering a set of stairs. It's a kid with ADHD having to sit still for multiple hours at school, or a dyslexic having to write flawlessly without spell check. It's always the combination. However, what we do when we call somebody disabled, then we normally locate the problem or the issue within the individual. And that is just not entirely true. So let's come to a conclusion. If we label dyslexics disabled, then we run the risk of harming their self-esteem, their perceived ability to perform certain tasks, and their performance therefore will likely suffer. And we do all of this while at the same time knowing that it is in fact always a combination between the individual and the environment that creates an experience that is disabling. All of that being said, it remains ambivalent, because even though I don't consider myself disabled, the label did enable me to receive special education, more time in exams, and that is quite a benefit. So tell me what you think about it, and see you in the next video.